My name's Carter Graves. My pronouns are they, them. My self-defined recovery is someone that discovered harm reduction and found better tools to have a better relationship with my drug of choice, which is methamphetamine. I found managed use after 7 years of chaotic use, and recovery for me is any positive change.
Do you want to jump right in and kind of tell us a little bit about what life was like for you growing up?
Single mother of six.
Okay.
I learned how to use meth through her. I was a generational meth user. Well, I learned post what I know now, I learned how not to do it, but I very much understand her reasons why. She was beaten in the head with a hammer of an assault that caused her to act erratically, which net positive from that, she started a cleaning business because she could not stop cleaning. Um, Congrats, Jen. But she would not have been able to keep up with it without that use at all. I mean, a single mom to six kids is insane.
Yep.
But with that, and I want to be clear here that her substance use, her being a single mother, our poverty is not what made her a bad mom. Her drug of choice is not what made her a bad mom. Her trauma is what made her a bad mom.
Okay.
I have gone through all of this, but like it was very controlling. Her trauma growing up in foster care, she was constantly afraid that we were going to be just taken out of the house at all. It's really weird to grow up with indoor cats and outdoor friends.
Wow.
Yeah. So like it was a struggle back and forth. I taught myself how to go to school. I homeschooled myself so that I could be available 6 days a week to help run the family business,
Okay.
which was the cleaning service. And that ultimately, just all of that was too much for one human being, and it resulted in her suicide about 7 years ago.
Wow. I'm so sorry for your loss.
I learned a lot, and I'm going to say something that might make you uncomfortable.
Go
I
ahead.
personally ask people if they had a good or a bad if they had the desired relationship they wanted with their parents before I tell them sorry for their loss.
Okay. So,
Because that makes me have to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you so much. And it's like, I'm not sorry.
mhm.
It freed me in a lot of ways. Things that I had to keep secret, I felt as an adult, I finally got to talk about.
Yeah, because
So I
you
had a
kind of
very
felt.
traumatic, yeah, I had a very traumatic childhood, but uh, I appreciate the sentiment that comes from the sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. And thank you for educating me and showing me how to look at that in a different perspective. And that's definitely something I can take on going forward. So thank you very much for that. And it also allows me a better understanding of yourself and your recovery process. So you find yourself in substance use, meth use specifically. At what age did you look at this and say, hey, this use is problematic for me?
16 to 19, it was Adderall.
Okay.
She showed us how to walk into the pediatrician and lie to them about I can't pay attention to school or skateboarding, so I need Adderall. Back then it was easy. I mean, what are we looking at? Early 2000s?
Yep.
So like 15, 16, 17, and 18, it was mostly Adderall and ecstasy use.
Okay.
This woman bought a jar of ecstasy, which measurement wise is 100 tablets. There's MDMA that is pressed into shapes, and say figure out your limits in the basement before you go out and do drugs in the real world. Cool, I guess. Like, how about like maybe a 10 pack, not 100? What are we
hmm
doing? So I didn't develop any kind of problematic relationships, self-defined issues, problematics, uh, until I started recreationally using meth in I was 21, 22, and then had rec use for I would say 3 years. It'd be like once a month. It's how I got the house clean. This is the modeled behavior that I learned from her, is that it's a tool to get things done. And then she died suddenly.
hmm
She had texted me after not speaking to me for 5 years. Hey, here's a picture of your new baby brother. And then she had passed 30 days later.
Wow.
And I was just like, I don't know how to deal with this. There's so much now that I am free of, but now I have to feel everything.
hmm
And I started using a lot. And I used a lot up until 2020.
Okay. What was that like? Like that process of change there. You want to describe that to me?
The process of change was kind of crazy because it was during the 2020 uprisings.
Okay.
It was the first time I had left the house in years. and I was outside around other people that weren't also people who were using or that I was making purchases from. They were people who were challenging my worldview, and it was getting harder and harder to hide what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
One day we are out and it's masks down. It was, I know it was during COVID, but we were all spread out and we're food sharing,
Mm-hmm.
something very intimate. And I'm picking the sugary stuff, which is a magnesium deficiency that comes from meth use. And I have one of the street medics pull me aside and he goes, "Hey, do you have bad acne?" Or, and I have had bad acne my whole life, but it was different the way I would pick at my face. And I just said, or for the first time to somebody I wasn't also using with. And he said, "Yeah, I used to do that shit too. Don't you think you're inviting violence into the crowd if the cops notice someone high on drugs in the crowd?" And that clicked. I know some people that I tell that story to are like, "He stigmatized you," but like it was just language I needed to hear that I was ready to hear.
Okay.
Because I went home that day to my ex-husband and said, "I choose marching in the streets over doing this anymore." It just, and from there, I de-escalated my use. So August of 2020 was when I was approached. And by October 4th of 2020 was the official date I ceased my use for a long period.
Okay. So when you say ceased use, you went into abstinence-based recovery.
For methamphetamine specifically, yes. I
Okay.
still would acid here and there, shrooms here and there, ecstasy here and there.
Hmm.
But for meth specifically, that was the substance that was life damaging for me where I was and needed to stop.
Yep. So did you do treatment? Did you do anything?
No, I was scared straight, I guess.
Okay.
I was scared of harming the very lives I was out to protect
Wow.
by being someone who could be clocked as a meth user in a crowd.
Okay.
I know that's like a real big, I mean, everybody had masks on and long sleeves. Like, how were the cops gonna know? But there's that level of paranoia that comes from being awake too long, and it just
Hmm.
worked.
And you,
So it was a de-escalation. I went from a gram or two a weekend to almost nothing until I went, "I'm not doing this anymore. Like, let's call today quits." And we did.
wow. How long were you practicing abstinence-based recovery?
3 years.
Okay. What was that like for you?
I was tired a lot, like really, really tired. My memory came back. Like there were net positives, but something was always just not right.
Okay.
Like I was able to lose a bunch of weight and keep it off. Um, which was really, really nice because I lost all the weight in 2020 and was struggling with someone that just doesn't leave the house to keep it off,
Hmm.
even in chaotic use. I was a heavy set. And it was nice. I do want to be hopeful for people that want to stop. It was nice. For myself, though, I couldn't get over the tiredness. I
Hmm.
had to constantly remind myself that my ability to get things done was artificial
Okay.
and that my need to get things done, it's almost anti-capitalist affirmations of just like I can be at rest. I don't always have to be doing something. I don't always have to be making money for myself, for others, for some corporation. I am allowed rest. Rest is revolutionary.
Okay.
And I have to keep doing that affirmation and just still it was just like there's something wrong.
Hmm.
I'm so tired. And I did everything, but like there's just something missing. Yeah.
At at what point did you look at this and say, "Hey, this method of recovery doesn't work for me. I would like to explore something new"?
After like after discovering I had long COVID.
Okay.
That's where a lot of this came from. Uh, it was in conjunction too that my original dive into meth use I found out later was me treating sleep apnea.
Wow. Okay.
It sucked so bad to sleep that I just stayed awake. Yeah. So like I've always had like weird medical issues also going on concurrently with everything. But after long COVID, I was just like, I can't take being tired anymore. I can no longer work. I can't anything. I don't feel good. I've lost all of my creative spark. I'm a very creative person.
What do you do for creative stuff? Are you an artist?
Yes, yes. I
Nice.
do a form of art called stippling, which is I dot a piece of paper until you get a image. And I often do that to give octopus, which is the most textured creature and untextured creature in existence, an image.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's both like it's so detailed, but it's also just not.
Hmm.
And it's like the perfect animal to be a vessel for that. So I draw, I do digital stuff for work. I've found a nice creative outlet there where it's low bones, where I still get to like be creative, but like no stakes. And then I do
Okay.
little jewelry pieces, stuff like that.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
and I craved that.
Hmm.
So I made a post on Facebook and went, "Hey, everybody, I'm struggling with the language I had at the time was relapse.
Okay.
I'm struggling with relapsing, and I don't know what to do, and here's the reasons." And I had people, of course, you get your, "Oh no, don't do it," and this and that. And
Oh
I
yeah.
went, no one's hearing why at all. Like, I'm just like, it's for quality of life. I think I want to do this.
Hmm.
And I took all the tools that I've learned being a harm reductionist over, I've done this since 2000. I have done reagent drug checking since 2011, but I only learned about the greater world of harm reduction in 2021.
What
So that
is reagent drug checking?
so reagent drug checking is a form of point of use checking, meaning at the point you intend to use a substance, you can check it for certain informational markers. Reagents are a series of chemicals that you can use to test for the presence of something in your samples. So you find a baggie on the ground at the
Yep.
end of a party. You bring it to me, and I go, "What do you expect to have today?" And they're like, "Well, it looks like Coke." So
Okay.
through a series of chemical tests where I take a dropper and I drop them on chemicals, I can tell you that's the presence of methamphetamine. Yep. And that's what I have tattooed to my forearm.
How about that?
It's the bottle for Simon A from step 2 of Simon A, Simon B reagent drug checking.
Wow. So you take a look at this and say, hey, people are going to use substances whether we like it or not, right? Regardless of anybody's thoughts, feelings, interpretations, any of that, right? And you say, I'm going to bring to you this point, right? Because I love people who use substances, starting with relationships, early relationships, right?
Yeah.
I would like to keep those people safe and possibly alive today, regardless of the choice that they're making, right?
Yes. That is actually a fun villain origin story. During the great ecstasy shortage of 2011,
Okay.
ravers almost ate sassafras trees to extinction
Wow.
for our need for ecstasy.
Wow.
There's studies on it that have been done. There's pieces that are all done. Vice did a lovely piece back in the day, but I digress. We got what we thought was MDMA. It was not. It was a research chemical known as methadone. My ex-husband was moving so fast he could no longer speak. And when the iPad he was speaking through died at an after party, I've seen a horror on this man's face like I've never seen again to this day.
Hmm.
Uh, at the end of our 18-year marriage. So terrifying. We found out about DanceSafe.org. They sold these little drug checking kits that you could keep in your fridge, and we got one. And we started testing the ecstasy in the neighborhood for everyone. And then at shows, and would get kicked out of shows because they were illegal. And yeah, it was just, I don't care, man. I don't want people eating these things. Like, it brought back a childhood stutter that he was never able to get rid of again.
Wow.
It messed up his brain. And I never wanted to see that happen to anybody else. And blind spot, we were only doing that for MDMA.
Yep.
I only started doing that in 2020 for methamphetamine. So
Wow.
almost my entire meth consuming career, I never did harm reduction for. It was
Wow.
always for ecstasy. Yeah. So I believe in what you said. is
Yeah.
I don't care where you are, no judgment, even if you're not checking regularly, like just come to me with the need to feel safe, and I'll give you the tools to keep yourself safe.
I identify as a person in recovery. I'm a person of abstinence-based recovery, but I come from a place of like big Narcan people, right? Like Narcan should be everywhere. Like people should have the access to Narcan. I installed a Narcan dispenser at a recovery clubhouse. 3 hours later, a young man 5 feet away from it nodded out at a meeting, and I texted somebody to shake his chair, and they did, and he did not wake up right away. I was possibly hours away from installing a Narcan dispenser to utilizing a Narcan dispenser, right? So, and if somebody, for me, and I look at this, somebody was like getting high and going to a meeting, like they're probably in the right place, right? Like they're probably exactly where they need to be. And who am I as a person to make that call of like, you know, like, does it make some people uncomfortable? Yeah. Right. But like, guess what? Alcohol's on every corner, right? We have to learn how to work through those things that in our process make us feel uncomfortable. So I had to understand a lot more, and I had to like be educated. And it's like, well, what made you stop? And I was like, well, my life was horrible. And I was like, well, did you stop the first time something bad happened to you? It was like, well, no. And it's like, well, thank God. You know what I mean? Like that was your process.
Yep.
So allowing us that space to keep people alive long enough that they have the choice to enter the world of recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you said choice there. I tend to push back on the like dead people can't get sober narrative.
Hmm.
That is an easy bit of meat for a lot of people to chew on because they want to see people move towards abstinence. And it's like, I just want you to be better for yourself, or to use the phrase that was said to me by Julia Hilbert at Prevention Point, which gave me the safety when I don't say safe space, I say brave space because you can't guarantee someone's
Okay.
safety, but I can curate an area where you say, hey, I can say this. And she said to me, I trust you to know where you are on the substance use spectrum, and I honor that.
Nice.
So if it's an abstinence-based meeting and you felt that somebody trusted themselves to know where they were that day,
Hmm.
and connection is what they needed,
Hmm.
not abstinence and care, like so be it, facilitate what you need so that
Hmm.
they can meet their goals.
I also look at, so in my faith, right, like as a Christian male, um, I look at and following the teachings of Christ. I look at the work that he did where he would wash the feet of, the homeless and invite them in and eat with prostitutes and all that type of thing. Like I like that as a person like myself in recovery, right? Like I do give the opportunity to like love on people, right? You know what I mean? Like, like let me give you some love. Like I know you're not where you want to be right now, possibly, and like you're having that tough point. Like I like to give people that love that they need because they're ostracized from society and like they get shit on in the media and it's a talking point of like harm reduction centers and you know and like let them die and all these things, and it's like, well, hang on, like let me take a step back into my faith and like let me like give these people some love and like let me help them in the way that they want to be helped, not in the way that I think they need to be helped.
Also, Jesus might have just been a real cool guy that like knew where to get the stories.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you really give like people who use drugs or people
Mhm.
who engage in both full contact and contactless sex work, like I love stories, man. Come on,
Yep.
let's go tit for tat on some good just exchange of
Yep.
ideas of pasts. So like if you ask me, like Jesus hung,
There
he
you
hung
go.
real hard. Yeah, but like a lot of us just I just needed somebody to see us
Yep.
and for us to be given a space to be brave in.
Hmm. I like
Yeah.
that. When did you enter the space of like harm reduction work, and like you shared like your beginnings of it and like what that looked like and like the legality around it and all that type of stuff, right? Like share like that process of like getting into it completely.
Um, I don't know, I guess it's kind of weird. So, villain origin story, checking MDMA.
Yep.
We got the label, myself and my ex-husband, as because I used to be a transcontinentally famous candy kid in rave culture. It's the people that wear their beads into their elbows and have the big giant pants on that are all colorful.
Okay.
Um, my previous name was Candy Carter. So the KK. And people would say it's KFK there, which stood for, in part in my language, uh, Candy fucking Carter. Because they knew they could be safe with me as a KFK, gonna be there like it was code.
Okay.
So, like, yep, I'm there. We got our checking stuff on us. Where do we have to sneak off to? I learned how to do with hydrochloric acid, which is what some of these reagents are made out of, with a single hand, check substances in a bathroom stall.
Wow.
Like, just completely clandestine is what I call it. I was a clandestine drug checker. So that was started in 2011. I continue that to this day.
Okay.
The KFK name, though, something I became synonymous with having safe use stuff on me. I went above ground in 2021 when people decided that they no longer wanted to sacrifice their friends to keep me a secret.
Mm-hmm.
I was offered my first tabling gig.
Wow.
And I said, let's do this. So I was openly checking drugs when it was illegal in bars.
Wow.
And it was really, really cool that it was finally accepted. It just sucked that I had to bury 9 of my friends in 1 year before 10 years after that. People were like, yeah, you know what you're doing doesn't cause harm. Sorry. So you could still call that unofficial work,
Mm-hmm.
but the community had started coming to me with expanding my ideas,
Mm-hmm.
just saying, hey, do you have condoms? And I'm like, let's figure that out.
Yeah.
Got a hold of the county health department. We started making condom kits. Um, that somebody had said, like, are you able to get birth control or like the morning after pill? And we figured that out through Remedy Alliance. They send 80 doses to my door every month,
Wow.
and we supply the sex workers unions with them. Like, it was when I say that KMFK, which is what we ended up officially calling the distros, KMFK Safety Services. So really funny when people are like, Candy motherfucking Carter Safety Services. I'm like, don't say the whole thing out loud. KMFK is in the house. Uh, they came to us with their needs. We are peer led and community centered.
Yep.
So if it's a sex workers event, our sex workers volunteers are there. If it's a rave, I'm there. If it's juggalos, our juggalos are covering it.
Okay.
Like, we make sure we're representing what they need, but they gave us everything we needed.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never on my own expanded to some of the stuff that I've expanded to. Like, yeah, naloxone, fentanyl test strips, cool. Me being visible doing this is what got me here. Like, it's like I have the basics, and what else?
Mm-hmm.
I do everything from pipes. I think it's important for people who distribute drugs to also distribute the tools to keep their people that they're supplying for safe.
Mm-hmm.
So we will help dealers get 100 cases of pipes to hand out with all their sales.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it just, it, I was loud. I mean, clearly I have a big personality
Mm-hmm.
to show up into the space. And that's part of how Prevention Point Pittsburgh, which I believe is the second oldest brick and mortar syringe service program in the United States, noticed me.
Wow.
How Abolitionist Law Center in Pittsburgh noticed me, were talking about me but didn't know my name, stuff like that. Started getting around and people started reaching out. And DanceSafe, the reagent retailers from my origin story, found out they had a chapter in Pittsburgh that was inactive. And by then I'd spent years building my thing, and they're like, do you want to take it over?
Wow.
And I said, yeah. I ended up not being a good fit for the position. I'm just a little too anarchist and a
Okay.
little too the national structure doesn't work for me.
Okay.
I need to be able to mold to what my community needs. So they have their space and I have mine. But just from there it's just been a skyrocket, which is funny because my friend had said when I changed my name, how does it feel to go from this level of fame to just the person with the test strips? And I went, we'll see. And look at me climbing the ranks again.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of institutions reach out to me.
Nice.
part of my love for recreational drug users is what led me to my current position as the outreach director at PA Groundhogs.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's really cool.
We're a community-based drug checking lab.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Tell me about your recovery process through this journey.
Through learning harm reduction tools,
Yes.
I am somebody who has never smoked meth.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that as in I am better than anybody.
Yep.
It is just my mom raised me not to smoke cigarettes, marijuana, or meth. So it was just not something I ever tried. Jen was a case, clearly. Stigmatized just people that inhaled, I guess. I don't know. Um, so I've never smoked it. I've exclusively snorted it for 7 years, which is how my sleep apnea continued to get worse.
Okay.
Um, and tools I didn't have previously. I didn't know you could get Hep C sharing straws.
Yep.
Yeah, I was always grossed out by money, but so like I avoided that. Personal favorite is I was crushing up with a like political mailer that I'd be sent. I'd be like, I'm not voting for this guy. Like, but I just not good tools. Like I'm snorting in like ink and paper and all these other like contaminants from using that to crush. So when I returned to use, I learned that the bioavailability for snorting meth is I was actually wasting a lot of what I thought I was consuming. So one of the better tools that I learned how to use was how to properly dose, which is your average dose is 30 to 60 milligrams, which is 2 pinheads. If I actually have, this is a 10 milligram scoop here, if you can see it.
Okay.
Just a couple of those. What? Oh my God, I was overdosing constantly. Um, I learned how to put that into like a saline sprayer. So if I am going to snort, I'm doing it in a way that isn't is harmful to my nose.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm putting it in jelly caps and capping it up and taking it like a normal pill.
Wow.
So it doesn't last as long at
Mm-hmm.
all that way. So like I learned about through harm reduction bioavailability, meaning how your body absorbs those things. I learned about how to stagger my use in a way that I'm actually sleeping every day. It might not always be like a full 8 hours. Like it might be like, as I affectionately call them, and I'm sure other people who have used meth call them twack naps. Um, yeah, whether it's an 18-second, I wasn't sleeping, or you get your 8 hours, it's still just like a you crashed, it's a twack nap. But I'll get like 4 hours. I
Okay.
know that staying up until I can't stay up any longer is bad for me. So there's that. There's learning how to eat and what to eat. It's learning how to constantly drink water. Like if I am using, because I have time blindness as an ADHD person naturally,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get lost if you're going faster. I set alarms for when I need to drink water
Mm-hmm.
so that I know, like, hey, you got to stop. Like, I learned all these harm reduction tools around methamphetamine use that made me feel confident that I can try this.
Wow.
I am fully aware it might not work out, but we're 2 years into my return to use. And I will self admit it got away from me twice,
Mm-hmm.
where I was just like, what are we doing? Like, stop that. That feels like it did back in the day, and I don't want to feel like that again.
Yep.
Yeah, where I say, hey, you don't get to use for 2 months now, reevaluate.
Okay. So
And
you use a process of evaluation of like, hey, this is my boundary, this is my limit. Let me look at this and like let me stay safe and stay alive today, right?
yeah, my personal tools are I don't use it unless I have checked it with a reagent,
Okay.
whether I have sent it to PA Groundhogs. Sometimes it's unrealistic for myself to say I have to wait for results, which is 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I say I have to send it out. And then I deal with the consequences if I find out later that what the reagent told me, like, yes, there was a presence of meth, but also after the lab said there's all this other stuff. That's my consequences to deal with later and be like, I knew something fell off. Maybe I should wait next time.
Okay.
But my boundary is it has to be sent to groundhogs and it has to be reagent tested. And I have to look at my schedule and actually schedule it. I'm not casually just like, "Meh." Like, no, it's like, well, you have 3 recovery conferences this weekend, and while you're tired, no, go use it to clean the house later or something. You don't go to work like that.
Okay.
hmm So I have my boundaries and I have my steps and I have my goalposts and I have my red flags.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's those checks and balances that I have for myself. And I have been successfully, when there's red flags, I have been able to be like, take a step back for 2 fucking seconds and talk to yourself.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
It,
awesome.
it's hard and I could not do it without my support system.
There you go. What's your support system like?
Um, I have an amazing boss.
Nice.
He allows for me to be an out person that uses drugs and to use my experience to not just help the program, but to help me heal publicly.
Mm-hmm.
I have great friends,
Nice.
and it's not even up for debate. KMFK keeps me going. Being able to run my little free at point of use service at raves and pride and clubs, that keeps me going.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
So it's good. Something to look forward to, as my therapist always said. Why don't you
nice.
schedule something for yourself to look forward to so you can get through a couple of months? I'd be like, all right.
How about that? So, if somebody was to need to find you or want more information on any of the things that you got going on, how can they do so?
All right. So for me personally, I am actually not very visible. I like to uplift the programs in which I lend my experiences to.
Cool.
So you won't find my Facebook, you won't find an Instagram for me, you won't find all these things for me. What you can find though will be the reagent drug checking equipment and fentanyl test strips that I back by WHPM, which are distributed by Grassroots harmreduction.org. They believe in ethical price points for harm reduction materials. So grassrootsharmreduction.org. I work for PA Groundhogs.org, which is a community-led drug checking lab that services PA and New Jersey.
Wonderful.
DanceSafe.org is fantastic when it comes to drug checking information, as well as their visibility to be able to go and do large festivals, which a lot of us, we just don't have that social cred to check in for. But if anyone wants to get a hold of me personally, feel free to contact me at contact Carter GEE raves at gmail.com. So contact Carter G raves at gmail.com. Oh goodness. Yeah, the contact part messes people up, but somehow the other Carter Graves was taken.
It's always like that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, not a problem. I feel like my own personal project. How could I even forget that?
Please.
KMFK Safety Services. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. We got a merch store. And yeah, just like follow the what's goings ons. You can usually figure out where I am through the KMFK Safety Services Instagram page.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do in the community. Thank you for sharing your story here with us today. And thank you for being a part of a community that saves lives and changes the way in which we see the world. So
Thank you.
thank you.